The sky above Earth had never looked so empty, so silent. Cities that once buzzed with life were now shadows beneath a thick haze of smoke and ash, their skyscrapers reduced to jagged skeletons. The air smelled strange, heavy with a strange, biting sharpness that clawed at lungs. It was the aftermath of a nightmare the galaxy had never seen before. The oxygen detonators. These were no ordinary weapons. They were designed for one terrible purpose: to burn the very breath of life from a planet's atmosphere, to make oxygen itself a deadly enemy. The Zaltec Dominion, a cold and ruthless alien empire, had unleashed these bombs in a sweeping attack against Earth, believing it would reduce humanity to nothing but ashes. But the result was far from what they expected. In the weeks after the bombs fell, satellites sent back images not of total extinction, but of scattered pockets of survival, hidden beneath the cracked Earth in underground bunkers and deep caves. Warmed by the planet's heartbeat, humans were alive. Not just alive, they were changing. Commander Ralverk, the stern-faced leader of the Zaltec fleet, stared at the glowing screens in disbelief. The instruments confirmed the readings. Oxygen levels remained volatile, and yet movement persisted on the surface. To the Zaltec, this was impossible. Their weapon had never failed. Somewhere in the burnt wastelands of what was once North America, small bands of humans moved like shadows, scavenging, adapting, surviving. They had sealed off the toxic air with masks and filters, but some seemed to breathe without them. Strange marks appeared on their skin, scars or something else. Ralverk ordered a drone mission to gather intelligence. The small craft slipped silently through the sulphurous clouds, cameras scanning the blackened ruins. But just as the drone approached a subterranean settlement, a sudden burst of energy shot through the sky. A homemade missile, perhaps, or a clever trap. The drone fell, crashing into the Earth with a fiery explosion. The Zaltec command room grew tense. No other species had fought back like this. The humans were not only alive, they were clever, resourceful. Deep inside one of Earth's many underground networks, Dr. Nyla Travers wiped soot from her face and looked around the crowded bunker where dozens of survivors had gathered. She had been an atmospheric scientist before the bombs fell, but now she was a leader, a symbol of hope. Her eyes, sharp and determined, scanned the small faces of children and elders alike. They were safe for now, protected by layers of rock and steel. Outside, the world was a graveyard. But inside these walls, life breathed quietly. Nyla thought about the oxygen detonators, their terrible power, and the mystery of why they hadn't destroyed everything. There was something about humans, something the Zaltec hadn't counted on. Slowly, across the globe, survivors shared knowledge through secret networks and radio signals, piecing together ways to survive the toxic air. Some learned to filter it, others learned to avoid it. And some, those rare few, began to change. They grew stronger, their bodies adapting to the poisoned atmosphere. It was a miracle born of fire and ash. As the weeks passed, the planet's surface grew colder and more hostile. But deep below, life not only endured, it grew bolder. Out of the silence after fire, humanity was stirring. Somewhere far beyond Earth, the Zaltec Dominion reconsidered their plans. The great weapon that was meant to kill had instead awakened something new, something they had never faced. And as the stars watched quietly, Earth's survivors prepared for a future no one could yet imagine. Beneath the blackened sky where once mighty cities had stood proud, new worlds were quietly being born, not from the glory of light or the rush of wind, but from the ashes left by destruction and fire. The oxygen detonators had scarred Earth's surface deeply, leaving behind deserts of glass and mountains of ash, but humans had not given up. Instead, they dug deeper, seeking refuge in the vast underground caverns and forgotten tunnels carved by ancient rivers and shifting stone. These places, warmed by the planet's inner heat, became the cradle of humanity's new hope. In these ash-born cities, people built homes with steel and stone salvaged from the ruins above. They grew food in glowing hydroponic gardens where synthetic light mimicked the sun, and clean water was drawn from hidden springs, filtered through layers of charcoal and sand. Technology once lost was reborn here, not the shining gadgets of the past, but tools made to endure, to serve, to protect. The cities hummed softly, powered by geothermal energy and solar satellites that caught weak light above the clouds and beamed it down like a lifeline. Dr. Nyla Travers stood on the edge of Ember City's central dome, watching the flicker of lights from the glowing iron leaf plants outside. These strange new plants were the work of her team, living machines designed to consume the excess oxygen poisoning the air. Their metallic leaves glistened with a strange blue-green sheen, absorbing toxic gases and exhaling fresh air. It was not just survival, it was a battle to heal a broken world. Nyla's mind raced with plans to expand this network of biomachines, but she knew the Zaltec were watching. They were silent now, but far above in the dark void of space, alien scouts moved stealthily, searching for weakness. One of these scouts had slipped close to Ember City, hidden in a wreckage that had fallen through the atmosphere unnoticed. It was a small pod, barely larger than a human, equipped with sensors and weapons. The humans found it quickly, when scavengers in the outskirts spotted its faint glow against the black soil. The pod was a mystery, and when Nyla and her team cracked its encrypted core, what they discovered sent shivers through the settlement. The Zaltec were planning more than just observation. They were coming to Earth, but not as conquerors, at least not yet. They wanted to study the strange human ability to live where no other species had survived. They called it hyperadaptation, and it was both a threat and a puzzle to them. The pod's data revealed designs for new weapons, but also tools meant to extract genetic material. Humans were more than enemies. They were subjects for a cruel experiment. The news spread quickly through Ember City, carried by hurried runners and crackling radios. Fear mixed with determination. The survivors could not fight a full-scale invasion in the open, but they had learned to fight in the shadows. Underground factories churned out makeshift weapons, electromagnetic pulse rifles, plasma cutters reforged into blades, armor pieced together from scrap. Every man, woman, and child knew the stakes. As the first scout ships darkened the horizon, Ember City went silent. No lights except the faint pulse of iron leaves. No movement but the whisper of wind through broken glass. A network of lookouts, trained from childhood, watched the skies, ready to sound the alarm. When the alien pods descended, the defenders sprang from hiding, firing bursts of electricity and flames that made the night glow with battle. The Zaltec were stunned. Their technology was strong, but Earth's children had something unexpected: the will to survive against impossible odds. Deep inside the command center, Nyla coordinated the defense. Her voice was calm but urgent, giving orders with precision born from years of crisis. The battle raged for hours, echoes bouncing through the tunnels like thunder. At dawn, the scorched remains of the alien pods lay scattered, and human voices raised a ragged cheer. But there was no time to celebrate. The Zaltec's plans were clear. They would return with more forces, more weapons, and more questions. And humans, once pushed to the brink of extinction, were not just surviving. They were changing. Some of the fighters showed signs of adaptation. Skin that resisted burns, eyes that pierced the smoky air, reflexes sharp as steel. The people of Ember City understood that the future would demand more than courage. It would demand evolution. Beyond the battles, Dr. Nyla worked in secret labs, analyzing the data stolen from the Zaltec pods. She pieced together designs for devices that could turn the enemy's own weapons against them, machines that could cleanse the air or create shields of plasma to protect the cities. The story of Earth's survival was becoming one of invention, born from desperation. The ashes of the old world were not just rubble. They were the foundation of something new, stronger. And as night fell over the underground domes, the people whispered a quiet promise. They would not only live, they would flourish. The stars above, once indifferent, now watched closely, as Earth's ash-born cities glowed defiantly in the darkness, a beacon of hope and resistance in a galaxy that had written humanity off too soon. The world above the ash-born cities was a place few dared to explore, a land scorched and twisted by firestorms that roared after the oxygen detonators had fallen. Yet, in this harsh and unforgiving environment, something remarkable was happening, something that even the Zalthek Dominion could not fully understand or control. Humans, those fragile creatures once thought doomed by the alien bombs, were changing. Slowly at first, then with increasing speed, their bodies began to adapt to the poisoned air and searing heat. Survivors who once struggled to breathe without masks found that, over time, their lungs grew stronger and more efficient at filtering the toxic atmosphere. Their skin, once vulnerable to burns and scars, hardened into a mesh-like armor with a subtle shimmer that caught the dim light, almost as if woven from strands of carbon fiber. Eyes adjusted to the smoky gloom, able to see through the thick haze as if it were clear air. Scientists like Dr. Nyla Travers observed these changes with a mix of awe and urgency. In secret labs beneath Ember City, she studied samples of blood and tissue, trying to unravel the mystery of this post-bomb hyperadaptation. Genetic sequences revealed mutations unlike any known before, rapid, beneficial, and apparently driven by some hidden biological mechanism triggered by the bomb's unique energy signature. But it wasn't just the bodies that changed. Minds grew sharper, instincts faster. Scouts and fighters reported reflexes so heightened they seemed almost superhuman. They moved with a new grace and strength, able to navigate the treacherous ruins and toxic storms with ease. Word of these changes spread quickly through the underground networks. Some called it a miracle, others a curse. But the Zalthek called it a shock, a disruption in their plans that left them unsettled and fearful. Commander Ralverk paced in the cold steel corridors of the Dominion's flagship, eyes narrowed as he reviewed reports from the front lines. His troops were losing ground, not because of numbers, but because humans fought with unpredictable power. Traditional weapons were less effective. Humans seemed to shrug off wounds that would have killed others. The Dominion scientists scrambled to understand the biological shifts, but their attempts to replicate the adaptations in their own soldiers failed. The humans had something unique, something born of fire and survival. In the ruins of old Chicago, a squad led by Captain Arjun Doyle prepared for a mission that could change everything. They had intercepted a cache of Zalthek weapons and technology, including blueprints for the oxygen detonators. Instead of destruction, the team aimed to reverse engineer these bombs into tools of creation, terraforming devices that could clear asteroid belts and build protective plasma rings around Earth. The mission was dangerous, the ruins were crawling, with Zalthek patrols, and the environment was hostile beyond imagination. But the humans moved with confidence, their bodies and minds working in perfect harmony, fueled by the adaptations that shocked their enemies. When they finally seized the technology, it was more than a victory. It was proof that humans were no longer victims but masters of their fate. The news reached the Ember City Command Center, and Nyla's heart swelled with hope. This was the turning point. Yet danger was never far. As the humans prepared to use the re-engineered detonators, the Zalthek launched a desperate counterattack. Elite forces descended upon the underground cities, wielding advanced weapons and armor designed to suppress the human adaptations. The battles were brutal and close, fought in shadowed tunnels and shattered streets. But even these overwhelming forces could not break the human spirit or the power of their new forms. Amid the chaos, Nyla made a startling discovery. Some of the adaptations were inheritable, passed on to children born in the underground refuges. These new generations showed signs of even greater resistance and strength. Humanity was evolving faster than anyone could predict. The Zalthek, facing a threat they could not extinguish, began to question their mission. The oxygen bombs, once thought perfect, had failed. Instead, they had unleashed a force that might one day challenge the Dominion itself. Commander Ralverk's frustration grew, but so did his respect for humanity's indomitable will and mysterious power. The galaxy held its breath as Earth's survivors rose from the ashes, not as broken remnants, but as a new breed, shaped by fire, forged in adversity, and ready to face whatever horrors the stars might send next. Beneath the scarred skies of Earth, where ash still drifted like slow snow and the scent of burning lingered in the air, A new kind of battle was brewing, one not only for survival, but for the very soul of humanity. Captain Arjun Doyle stood at the helm of the Solar Blade Corps, a small but fierce group of fighters who had become the spearhead of Earth's resistance. His face was marked with soot and lines of hard-earned determination, eyes scanning the horizon as he prepared his team for a mission unlike any before. They had learned much from the fallen oxygen detonators and the wreckage of Zoltec technology captured in the ruins of old Chicago. Now, their goal was to strike deeper, to take the fight to Mars, where the Zoltec had established a forward base bristling with weapons and guarded by elite soldiers. This base held something vital, genetic archives that might reveal the secret to the Zoltec's fear of human adaptation, information that could turn the tide of the war. The plan was daring and dangerous, a swift raid using magneto-skiffs to silently cross the barren wastes, then breach the fortress to seize the data and escape before reinforcements arrived. The team moved under cover of darkness, the weak light from the distant sun casting long shadows across the cracked surface of the red planet. Inside the cold metal corridors of the Zoltec base, tension ran high. The enemy soldiers were ruthless, trained to expect nothing but defeat from the resilient humans. But Captain Doyle's team fought with something far greater than training. They fought with iron in their blood, strength born of fire and survival. Plasma blades hummed and sparks flew as skirmishes erupted in narrow hallways. Humans moved fast, their bodies showing signs of the strange adaptations developing after the oxygen bomb attacks. Skin tough as armor, eyes piercing through the dim light, reflexes so sharp they seemed to anticipate danger before it arrived. The battle was fierce but brief. Using guerrilla tactics and their intimate knowledge of the terrain, Doyle's team overwhelmed the Zoltec defenders and reached the core archive. Dr. Nyla Travers was already there, working to decrypt the genetic files with her handheld console, fingers flying over the keys as data streamed in. The files revealed startling truths. The Zoltec did not fear humanity because of strength alone, but because humans had something they lacked: the ability to survive and adapt to catastrophic changes. Their biology was fluid, constantly evolving, to meet new threats. The Zoltec called it fire-borne resilience, a trait seen in no other species. Worse, the data hinted that the Zoltec themselves were running from a greater terror, the cradle extinction, a mysterious galactic plague, consuming worlds in its path, killing indiscriminately and reshaping life as it destroyed it. The oxygen bombs were not simply weapons. They were tests designed to find species that could withstand the plague's deadly wave. Earth had passed, and that made humans a beacon in a dying galaxy, but also a target. With the truth laid bare, Doyle and Nyla realized the fight was no longer just about Earth, but about the survival of all life. They had to prepare for the coming storm. On the journey back to Ember City, the team moved swiftly, carrying the precious data like a lifeline. But the Zoltec were not idle. Scouts and reinforcements pursued relentlessly, and the humans had to fight every step of the way. As they crossed the desolate plains and blasted canyons, the air crackled with energy from plasma blasts and magnetic pulses. At one point, Doyle found himself face to face with a Zoltec warrior whose armor shimmered with dark energy. Their blades clashed, sparks flying as metal met metal in a deadly dance. Doyle's enhanced reflexes saved him more than once, and when he finally struck the decisive blow, he knew their victory came at a high price. Several of his team lay wounded, some missing. Back in Ember City, Nyla and the surviving fighters buried their dead with quiet honor. The city, carved from stone and steel beneath the earth, pulsed with new energy. The people were no longer just survivors. They were warriors shaped by fire, their veins coursing with the iron of determination and change. As Nyla studied the Zoltec genetic codes, she saw a path forward, a way to harness the power of adaptation to create stronger defenses, better weapons, and even ways to heal the planet's poisoned air. But the knowledge came with a warning. The cradle extinction was moving closer, and Earth's time to prepare was running out. The silence of the stars grew heavier, as if holding its breath for the coming battle. The humans had fought hard, But the war was far from over. In the deepest tunnels of Ember City, under the glow of iron leaf plants that purified the toxic air, Nyla and Doyle made a pact, a promise that no matter the cost, humanity would rise, fight, and become more than what the galaxy expected. Iron was now in their blood, fire in their hearts, and the stars awaited the next move of Earth's children of the fire. Darkness had settled heavily over Ember City, the underground sanctuary where humanity clung to life beneath layers of rock and steel, shielding itself from the hostile skies above. The Zalthek forces, relentless and cunning, had begun a siege that stretched the limits of human endurance. For weeks, alien warships circled Earth, cutting off supply lines and broadcasting cold messages of surrender, words meant to crush the human spirit. Yet, deep within the city's labyrinthine tunnels, the people refused to yield. Captain Arjun. Doyle paced the command room, his jaw tight, eyes flicking over maps glowing faintly on the screens. The enemy's strategy was clear: starve the survivors into submission, wait for their defenses to crumble. But Doyle and Dr. Nyla Travers knew the truth was more complex. The Zalthek were also trying to understand humans, probing for weaknesses and secrets hidden in their rapid adaptations. Using the stolen genetic archives, they had launched experiments that twisted the laws of biology, attempting to find a way to suppress humanity's fiery resilience. It was a battle fought not only with weapons but with knowledge and will. Scouts brought back grim news. Pockets of sabotage had been discovered inside the city, alien agents who tried to poison the water supply and spread misinformation. The fear of betrayal weighed on everyone's shoulders. Yet amid the tension, human ingenuity shone brighter than ever. Engineers and scientists worked tirelessly, crafting new defenses from scraps of old technology fused with the Zalthek's own weaponry. Walls were reinforced with plasma shields, drones buzzed silently on patrol, and communication networks pulsed with encrypted signals. The underground gardens, vital for food and oxygen, became battlegrounds where every inch was fiercely protected. In one tense moment, a squad led by Lieutenant Mara, a young fighter whose eyes glowed faintly from adaptation, uncovered a hidden laboratory where the Zalthek were conducting horrific experiments on captured humans. These prisoners had been altered, twisted into monstrous versions of themselves, stripped of will and used as weapons. The discovery shook the city, but it also steeled its resolve. Mara's team freed the survivors, and their stories became a rallying cry. Humanity must fight not just for survival, but for its soul. Outside, the alien warships unleashed waves of attacks, sonic blasts, plasma barrages, and swarms of drones designed to seek and destroy. Yet the defenders responded with fierce counterattacks, using their newfound adaptations to survive and strike back. Captain Doyle himself led daring raids on supply convoys, snatching vital resources and sending messages of defiance to the enemy. Dr. Nyla, working tirelessly in her lab, made a breakthrough. A compound derived from the iron leaf plants could enhance human resilience even further, boosting immune systems and repairing cellular damage from radiation and toxins. Trials began immediately, with volunteers stepping forward to embrace the unknown in hope of a stronger tomorrow. But as the siege dragged on, cracks began to show. Supplies dwindled, exhaustion crept into even the strongest bodies, and whispers of despair haunted the tunnels. Then, in the darkest hour, a transmission crackled through the static. A voice not Zalthek, but something new. It was a warning, and an offer. A faction within the Dominion, weary of endless war, sought peace and understanding. They believed that humanity's fireborn resilience was a gift, a key to surviving the cradle extinction that threatened all life in the galaxy. The message was met with suspicion and hope. Captain Doyle and Dr. Nyla debated fiercely. Could they trust a traitor's promise? Was peace possible, or a trap to end their fight? The Council of Leaders decided to risk a small envoy, choosing Mara to represent humanity in a parley with these alien dissenters. The meeting took place in the shadow of shattered moons, aboard a neutral space station suspended between worlds. There, beneath cold stars, Mara faced Zalthek commanders whose faces held wariness and curiosity. The talks were tense, words heavy, with history and pain. But slowly, understanding began to bloom. Both sides saw the truth. The cradle extinction was a threat that no one could face alone. Humans, with their unique ability to adapt and survive, held the hope for a future beyond destruction. The Zalthek dissenters offered knowledge and aid, but in return, they demanded trust and cooperation. Returning to Ember City, Mara brought news of fragile alliance and new weapons designed to fight the plague that approached the stars. The siege lifted as Zalthek loyalists retreated, and for the first time in months, the people dared to hope. Yet in the shadows, the darker forces within the Dominion plotted, unwilling to accept defeat or change. Ember City's defenders knew the path ahead was fraught with danger, but united in purpose and strengthened by adaptation, they prepared to face the coming storm. The Siege of Understanding was not just a truce, it was the beginning of a new chapter, where old enemies could become allies against a darkness greater than any had imagined. Humanity's fire burned brighter than ever, lighting the way through the cold void toward a future forged in courage, hope, and the unbreakable will to survive. The silence in Ember City was different now, not the heavy, fearful silence of a place under siege, but one filled with quiet anticipation, as if the earth itself was holding its breath before a great awakening. Children, born underground amid the iron and ash, moved through the tunnels with a strange light in their eyes, their bodies already marked by the fireborne adaptations that had saved their parents. They ran faster, breathed deeper, and saw clearer than any before them, their skin toughened to the heat and their minds sharp beyond measure. Dr. Nyla Travers watched them closely from her lab, marveling at the new generation, children of the fire as they were called, a living testament to humanity's indomitable will and the strange power born from destruction. These children were no longer just survivors, they were the future, shaped by the oxygen bomb's deadly gift and forged in the crucible of conflict. Nyla's research revealed that the adaptations were now deeply embedded in their DNA, passed down and enhanced with every new birth, creating humans who could live and thrive where no others could. But this gift carried with it great responsibility. The cradle extinction was still moving through the galaxy, a shadow that threatened to swallow entire worlds. The alliance with the dissenting Zalthek factions had brought new knowledge and weapons, but the plague's advance was relentless and unforgiving. Captain Arjun Doyle stood beside Nyla in the command center, watching the youngest fighters prepare for their first mission above the surface since the old world had burned. The sky was still a harsh gray, but it held the promise of dawn. These children, trained in the art of survival and armed with the technology born of desperate innovation, were ready to reclaim the world that had been taken from them. Their mission was to establish new outposts, to gather resources, and to push back the alien forces that lingered in the shadows beyond the domes. The operation was risky. Old ruins held dangers beyond hostile patrols, unstable buildings, pockets of toxic gas, and the ever-present threat of betrayal. Yet the children moved with a confidence that stunned their elders. Their bodies adapted quickly, their senses alert to dangers unseen. As they advanced into the ruined cities, they discovered signs of a new threat, strange spores spreading through the cracked earth, pulsing with a dark energy that seemed to corrupt everything it touched. The cradle extinction was not just a distant threat anymore. It had arrived, seeping into the planet's wounds and threatening to snuff out the fragile light of human resistance. Back in Ember City, Nyla and Doyle coordinated efforts to study the spores, racing against time to develop defenses that could halt the plague's deadly spread. The laboratory was a whirlwind of activity, filled with hopeful determination and quiet fear. Then, in the heart of the city, an alarm blared, a warning that a breach had occurred. The enemy, sensing weakness, launched a sudden assault aimed at the heart of the underground sanctuary. The children of the fire were called to defend their home. The battle that followed was unlike any before. These young warriors fought not only with weapons, but with the fierce power of their adaptations. They moved with lightning speed, skin shimmering under the strain but never breaking. Their eyes glowed in the dim light, seeing through smoke and shadow to strike at their foes with precision and strength. Among them was Lyra, a girl barely 16, whose bravery and quick thinking saved dozens of lives when she led a counterattack that pushed the invaders back into the darkness. Her story spread quickly, inspiring others to rise and fight with renewed vigor. As the dust settled, the city mourned its losses but celebrated its resilience. The children of the fire had proven they were ready to lead, to carry the torch past, down through generations scarred by war and survival. Yet, beyond the walls of Ember City, the cradle extinction pulsed and spread, an endless shadow waiting to consume all light. The alliance with the Zalthak had revealed one last hope, a hidden technology buried deep beneath a shattered moon, capable of halting the plague if activated in time. Nyla, Doyle, and a select team of fighters, including Lyra, prepared for a final journey across the stars to seize this last chance at salvation. As their ship slipped through the void, Nyla looked back at the glowing domes of Ember City, the heart of a new humanity born from fire and ash. She knew the road ahead would be perilous, filled with unknown horrors and impossible choices, but she also knew one thing with certainty: humanity's flame would not be extinguished. They were the children of the fire, and they would burn bright against the darkness, lighting a path for all who dreamed of a future beyond the ashes.